Welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Stacy and I am the chapter Conundrum, and today I'm joined by my lovely sister Lisa, and we are here because she's gonna pick, or she has picked some, I think, thrillers or books anyway, for me to read that she has enjoyed. She's also an avid reader, and we thought it would be fun for her to pick some books for me to read and see how I get on with them.
Yes, so she had to come to her much older, wiser sister to see what books are good for her to read. We have pretty different reading tastes in general, although we overlap somewhat. And one of those areas is thrillers.
Yeah. I would say we have different reading interests, maybe. Like we would go for different genres, but I think our tastes, like when we do read the same book, we're usually within a star of each other.
Usually.
But not always.
Not always. But pretty close.
Yeah.
The thriller genre, as most of you know, has a lot to offer. I've picked out 3 books I think are pretty good representations of the genre that I think Stacy should read, and I can't believe she hasn't already.
Too many books, too little time.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so these are all backlist items. So the first one is The Marsh King's Daughter by Karen Dion.
Okay.
And this one was not recommended to me. I just randomly found it, probably on someone's YouTube, honestly, but I don't remember. I gave this one 5 stars.
Ooh, okay.
This is a really pretty unusual plot. It's very different. So it features a protagonist, Helena Peltier, and she basically, her father kidnaps her mother.
Okay.
And that's how she comes to be. And so she has a pretty isolated upbringing in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And as you can imagine, very isolated, really learns the land, loves the outdoors, and her dad is really an avid outdoorsman too, and obviously a creep, as you can probably infer. And basically, I'm not going to give any major spoilers, but eventually he goes to prison and then he escapes. And basically our protagonist knows that the cops have virtually no chance of finding him in the marsh. He's like an outdoor expert at the marsh.
Right.
So she decides to go after him herself.
Okay.
So it's really interesting. I think it's a great book. I gave it 5 stars. It's been a few years since I read it, but it stuck with me. Highly recommended.
Okay. I'm intrigued by a few things there. Usually I like revenge plot books, so I'll be interested in it for that aspect. I always like those typically because the character always has a lot of reactions about or anger or feelings about what they've experienced, and I like reading expressive characters. And also the fact that it's set in Michigan, kind of close to our home area where we both grew up, and it's outdoors, so the foliage and the nature should be somewhat familiar and nostalgic.
Yeah, I would say so. Okay, so that one sounds interesting.
Sounds promising.
Okay, sounds promising. All right, so my next one, and here's my disclaimer about Ruth Ware.
Okay.
I love Ruth Ware, and I tend to rate Ruth Ware more highly than the average reader does.
Okay.
And so I've given most of her books either 4 or 5 stars. So she writes what I enjoy, essentially. And so one great example is her book called One by One.
Okay.
I read this book in 2021. I also gave this one 5 stars.
Nice.
Now this is more of your typical thriller type plot, in the vein of Agatha Christie. It's a whodunit. It's a mystery that's in an isolated setting. You know, people are trapped, snowed in a chalet. And the funny, well, I think it's kind of funny, they're all basically work partners or former work partners. So Liz and Aaron are the narrators. They're part of this company called Snoop, which is, I believe it's like a music, sort of a Spotify type of a company, if I remember correctly. And basically, Liz is no longer an employee, but she holds like the deciding vote on whether to sell or not. So there's a lot of
pressure on
strong opinions on both sides of whether the company should be sold or not. And then the next thing you know, they're snowed in, and then people start disappearing. So, and dying. So the interesting thing about this one You do figure out who done it before the end. Like a lot of books,
Okay.
you don't find out till the bitter end. This one you do. But it's done really well, written really well, really enjoyed it. It didn't bother me that it wasn't a complete surprise. So
Okay.
5 stars from me, highly enjoyed it. I think you should give it a try.
Okay. I like books or thrillers specifically that are kind of paced a little bit more evenly, where you don't have to wait until the very end to get all of the answers. I like when you get answers kind of along the way, or you always have more to wonder about. And so it sounds like the pacing won't be an issue for me. So that's good.
And there's this weird thing about whodunit books where you don't find out till the very last page.
Yeah.
Maybe the listeners can relate to this, but do you ever find that like a month after you've read the book, you're like, wait, who did it again?
Yeah.
Because all I remember is the whole experience of reading the book, the whole lead up, but it was only the last few sentences where you figured it out, and that didn't always stay with me. So
yeah.
it's kind of funny.
I find in the experiences where it does stay with me, there tends to be a lot of like an explanation with whodunit, so you understand like, oh, that foreshadowing was in place for this and it makes sense. Or when you have a lot of like aha moments, those are the ones that stick with me. But when you just find out and it's dropped on you, like it can be interesting and satisfying, but it's not the same.
Yeah, I agree. So I really enjoyed that one. So my third pick for you, again, very different from the other two. So this one is The Sun Down Motel by Simone St. James. I also gave this one 5 stars. This one is sort of your creepy roadside motel in the middle of nowhere. And it's a dual timeline, which is pretty interesting. It features Vivian Delaney in 1982, and that was the time. I mean, you always tend to enjoy one timeline the most, right?
Yeah.
I think I enjoyed that one a little bit more just because of the atmosphere from the 80s. And then it's her niece, fast forwarding to 2017, her niece Carly, that we learn about. Basically, my favorite thing about this book was just a really great, creepy, masterfully atmospheric setting. I thought the writing was just top notch. And this one, I actually wrote in my review that I stayed up late at night to finish it. And you know, that's the sign of a good thriller to me, when I stay up late to finish it.
Yeah, because you have to get up
I have to get up early. So if I stay up late, I'm sacrificing, you know, my hard-earned sleep to finish. So I really enjoyed that one.
So it has a plot as well as being atmospheric.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
For a while, it was sounding like more of a Jake recommendation.
I mean, I don't know if Jake's read this one.
He probably would. He likes atmospheric thrillers. Like that's part of why he loves Lisa Jewell.
That's cool.
So he may read it with
me. Yeah,
me.
he might like this one too. Feel free to read it too, Jake. All right, well, I hope you try all of those, and I hope you give them all 5 stars like I did.
Hopefully.
Somehow I highly doubt that will happen, but you never know.
I'm a stingy person with 5-star ratings.
Well, I kind of am too.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, you're probably not going to enjoy them as much as I did, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It should be interesting.
Yes.
So thanks for picking some books for me.
You're very welcome. I can't wait to hear how it turns out.
Yeah. And in the following clips, you'll find out. I'll start reading one when I'm home. Hey, so I'm here with an update finally. I have started reading The Marsh King's Daughter, and actually I started reading it the other day while I was waiting at the DMV. I don't think I've told any of you guys here yet, but my sister gifted Jake and I her old car as a wedding gift. And so we were at the DMV here the other day, registering it and titling it in our state and all that good stuff. But we did have to wait quite a while, so I had a chance to get started on Marsh King's Daughter while we were there. I have the ebook from the library right now, and I'm about 35% in, and I'm really enjoying it. So my thoughts from the beginning here are that everything so far seems very straightforward. There's not a whole lot woven into the story for me to kind of wonder about, or like there's not a whole lot of mystery in, but I can definitely tell that the author is intentionally weaving in things that are going to provide more tension to the story coming up, so I'm excited for that. We also have gotten a bit of the main character's backstory, and those tidbits were very interesting too. I actually am looking forward to getting more detail from those and unpacking sort of more of her experiences growing up, because I thought that was interesting. So I'm looking forward to continuing on with this and just seeing if there are more things introduced for me to start wondering about and thinking about and having theories on, or if it's just the kind of book that's like a wild ride. But even if it is the kind of book that's just a wild ride, I think I'll enjoy it just based on how early tension is starting to become layered into the story. I have a quiet day at home planned. You know, I'm caught up on my to-do list and the pups seem to be kind of snuggled in, looking out the window, watching squirrels, I'm sure. Yeah. So anyways, I will check back in with you guys later when I've gotten some more reading in. So I just finished Marsh King's Daughter, and I have settled on giving it a 4-star rating. So I really liked the character exploration in here, and I enjoyed getting to explore the family dynamics of, you know, how she grew up and a lot of the stuff in the past timeline. But I think for this book to have been a 5 for me, it either needed one of two things. It either needed more time in the present timeline with like the main premise of the synopsis of the story, where she's kind of hunting down her dad, and I wanted like more tense moments and stress and that kind of thing in that timeline. Or I needed there to be some things introduced in the present timeline that made you question certain moments or wonder about certain things within the past timeline, like that you were sort of unraveling, like it was a mystery. Because I think, yes, it was enjoyable. Yes, there were a lot of good moments and good character work, but I just wasn't as compelled to keep reading as I wanted to be, and I wasn't as invested in the story as I wanted. Overall, I still had a good time with it, and I'm glad I checked it out. It was definitely different than what I would typically read in a thriller, so I appreciated it for that reason. And the next one I pick up for this vlog is going to be One by One by Ruth Ware, because my library hold for the audio came in already. So I will check back in with you guys once I've started that and let you know what I'm thinking about it. Hey, so I'm about 60% into One by One by Ruth Ware, and I thought it's probably about high time I come and give you guys an update. So as my sister said, this is definitely in the vein of Agatha Christie, and specifically it reminds me a lot of And Then There Were None, with the scenario of like this group of people in an isolated setting, and one by one they're going missing and turning up dead. But not only in scenario is it reminding me that, it's more of like the writing style a little bit too. It's got that sort of classic mystery feel of like the characters postulating who it could have been and who kind of had the opportunity and the means and the motive to sort of commit these murders. And while I don't typically gravitate towards those types of thrillers, I am really enjoying this one. And I think it's just because it's so modernized. So essentially, like, the writing still feels very modern. And yes, there are bits and pieces of the narrative that are, you know, the characters postulating with each other who could have done this and how it could have happened and all that. But there's also still a lot of intrigue into the POV characters themselves. Like, we're digging out pieces of their backstories that are interesting and that are adding kind of more tension or intrigue to the story. And I also feel like we're getting to know the characters in this scenario a little bit better than most books with this format would sort of allow for. I definitely have my own theory about what's happening in this one, and I'm not going to say what it is, but I'm very curious to see if I'm correct or not. And the beginning of the book straight up tells you how many people survive this whole incident. So I know not too many more people die from what I've read up to so far. And I do remember my sister also saying that you get the reveal of who done it kind of earlier on in the book. So I'm definitely looking forward to finding that out hopefully soon. And I think my rating on this one is really going to hinge on sort of the reveal of that and the falling action and sort of all the explanation that goes along with that. But so far I don't really have any major complaints and I'm enjoying it. So we'll see. So I finished listening to One by One by Ruth Ware last night. It was very late, and I actually re-listened to the last few minutes this morning just to make sure I remembered everything that was happening because I was falling asleep. But I have settled on giving this book a 4-star rating, and mainly I just thought that in order for me to really buy into all of the postulations and all of the, guesses that the characters were having here, I needed more detail in terms of their thought processes on like how they thought that things could have happened. And then the other main factor that had me reducing my rating a little bit is that I just didn't feel like I had enough resolution, answers, or solutions, explanations, etc. from the murderer. I just felt like the answers weren't very nuanced or deep. I wish that we kind of explored those things with a lot more depth. And I think if we had, I would have found everything a little bit more plausible. But all in all, I will say this is very entertaining, and I really enjoyed the more modern take on the whodunit sort of mystery type of story. I liked especially that we got a lot more character depth in terms of our POV characters in here, and I also just enjoyed the character journey that we went on with one of those POV characters. So next up, my last book for this vlog is going to be the Sun Down Motel, and I am currently waiting on a library hold for this to come in. I used to have a physical copy of this, but unfortunately, when I kind of unexpectedly moved here from Canada, one of the things I did was, got a list of, okay, what are all the books I have at home? And of those, what are available at the library or on Everend or whatever, because I don't probably need to worry about moving those physical copies. And Sun Down Motel was one of the ones that kind of fell into that category. So it got unhauled to my local used bookstore back in Canada, but that's okay. I will check back in with you guys in a few weeks once I'm able to get my hands on a copy of it and get it started. So I am having a cozy evening working on my diamond painting and listening to Sun Down Motel, and I have now gotten halfway, so I figured it was probably time to come and update you guys. And basically my thoughts so far are that the first 25% was a little bit slow for me. It's definitely taking its time to kind of set up what's going on at this hotel and just giving you a little bit more from both timelines and just getting the characters established kind of where they need to be in terms of the story that's coming. But now that I'm about halfway through, things have picked up a bit and gotten more exciting for both our main characters. I'm definitely still finding though that I'm way more invested in the past timeline following Viv and less so invested in the current timeline following Carly. So I'm hoping that given a bit more time that changes and I get invested in both of their POVs. If any of you guys were curious, I just started this painting, so I've only got one color on there, but this is what it's going to end up looking like when I'm done. I'm joined by Ozzy, obviously, but we've had a pretty productive morning, haven't we, buddy? Yeah, we got some laundry done, had a shower, got some sourdough started, tidied the house, did some vacuuming, and I finished Sun Down Motel. So I'm happy to report that the second half did pick up for me, both in terms of pacing and in terms of me enjoying the present day timeline more. I did find that there was more happening within the second half of the present timeline, and I also just appreciated Carly's character a little bit more. That said, though, the past timeline and Viv's POV was definitely the standout for me in this book. And I think part of that is that some of the reveals that happen in the present timeline specifically, they didn't have me reacting the way I wanted to. So normally when I get a good reveal in a thriller, I want to be like, what? But there's a few in here that were just a little bit too coincidental for me, or like less logical than I wanted them to be. And so my reaction was more like, okay. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that kind of thing. That said, I think I am settling on a 3.75 star rating for this. I did find that it was very atmospheric and spooky. Definitely enjoyed the paranormal elements involved here. I did also find that the ending of this one was kind of not really what I wanted. We got a few things wrapped up that I didn't really feel like needed to be wrapped up in a bow. And then there were also some things left unsaid that I wanted more on. So I think that also played into my rating as well. So all in all, my ranking of the thrillers I read for this video, I think I would put Marsh King's Daughter on top, and then One by One, and then Sun Down Motel. I still enjoyed all of them for sure, and I'm glad I read them all. It was funny, like in the whole experience with Ian the Reader, where Jake and I chose mystery thrillers for him to read, and we tried to pick better books for him. When we were having to choose a tiebreaker book, I was at my sister's at the time, and I was looking through my Goodreads trying to talk about the possibilities with her of like what I could choose, and we realized through that, because she was also scrolling her Goodreads, that there were so many of her favorite thrillers that I still hadn't read, and she was pretty shocked that like, what, you haven't read this or this or this? So I think it's been good, especially to read a few of them and knock a few off the list that she was surprised I hadn't read yet. And I also really enjoyed that I got to try all new authors for sure, and had solid experiences with all of them. So it's funny, at the beginning of this video I mentioned that my sister and I tend to have like different interests, like we gravitate towards picking up different books, but when we do pick up the same books, we tend to rate within a star of each other. And so it's kind of funny that my ratings for all of these books definitely track with that trend. Like, I think she gave them all 5 stars, she said. So, I mean, a 4, a 4, and a 3.75, that's all pretty much within a star. So no real surprises there. I'm a bit sad that I didn't find a new 5-star favorite, but if you have a favorite thriller that you think I'd love, definitely leave that in the comments down below. And also, if you want, you can leave me a king emoji to let me know that you got this far into the video for Marsh King's Daughter. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hope you have a great day. Bye!